So let me ask you, is your basal insulin suddenly feeling off? Maybe you're having morning highs, overnight lows, afternoons that make no sense. Guess what? You're not imagining it. And you're not failing at diabetes. Perimenopause changes the rules. Estrogen drops, progesterone swings, cortisol rises, and all three can shift insulin sensitivity hour by hour sometimes. And that means the basal insulin that worked for years may no longer match what your body's rhythm is today. So today in this episode, I'm going to focus on a very specific topic, and it is going to be on basal insulin challenges in perimenopause, especially for women on multiple daily injections. So if you're an MDI user, therapy settings, or the type of insulin obviously that you're using with injections, today's show is going to help you specifically. I'm going to walk you through why this is happening and give you practical solutions so you can walk away with today, including how to rethink basal timing, when splitting the dosing may help, and why some women even do better with a midday basal dose. So lots to unpack today. And in the next episode, so next week, we'll build on this and dive into how to adjust basal settings when you're using an insulin pump. So basal profiles, manual mode, and temporary basals through hormonal shifts. So stay tuned for that next week. And just a reminder, this is not medical advice. Always seek help from your doctor about proper pump settings or basal settings, dosing schedules, and all of that specifically for you. Today I will share my story with you, what works for me and some of the clients I work with to help you to determine an action plan or lead the conversation with your doctor or diabetes care team. And before we dive in today, I want to share something I'm really excited about for the year ahead. 2026 is going to be packed with some really exciting things. The Type 1 and Midlife Coaching Circle moved into a new rhythm. Again, this is our second annual gathering of women inside of our online group circle. And this year is going to be a little slower, steadier, and intentionally designed to support women with type 1 diabetes through midlife. So generally speaking, 40 and up that are experiencing hormonal changes. And this year we're focusing on one core area of health each month. Pairing women with accountability partners, so somebody you can buddy up with to help keep you on track and somebody to check in with. And so you can actually notice what's helping your body without pressure or perfection. So if you're looking for education, community, and real life support as you navigate perimenopause and menopause and all those hormones, blood sugar, and everything else that comes with this season, I'd love to welcome you into the circle. We kick things off with our 2026 launch today, January 12th. So if you're just hearing this, it's not too late to join us. The door is always up. You're always welcome to join us. And if you want deeper support navigating insulin needs across every hormone stage, from monthly cycles to perimenopause and menopause, stay tuned. I'll walk through the step-by-step in my upcoming book, Highs, Lows, and Hormones. It's going to be a survival guide for women with diabetes from the monthly cycles to menopause. So, and what you can do right now is you can grab my free guide. It's HRT and type 1 diabetes. It's a 5-step guide. And you can join the book pre-launch list so you stay in the loop as things unfold. And you can see all the links right here in the show notes, all the things that I just mentioned, the coaching circle, getting on my launch list and by downloading that free guide. And also, you can easily just visit my website, abundanthealthwithmelissa.com, where you will see access to everything that I mentioned today. And again, you can always reach out to me by email, hello@abundanthealthwithmelissa. So let's dive into today's episode and to help you make sense of what your basal insulin is telling you right now. And this is a real question many women are asking. This is a hot topic inside of my coaching circle because our members are perimenopause. They're anywhere from 45 to early 50s, and they are struggling with just this topic right here. This is it. How, when, and how do I do this insulin dosing? Why is it such a train wreck right now? So that's what we do. We unpack it, and it's very specific because each woman is different. So just like I'm going to share today, I'm going to be giving you some ideas. And again, these are all things that you can bring back to your doctor, maybe some things they're not mentioning to you that might trigger an idea or a thought about what maybe is kind of got you stuck with your highs and lows, basically, where your basal setting is not supporting that. So this client, again, inside our circle, she came to me and she takes Levemir. And we had Allison Smart here on the show earlier in the year, and she really, really opened up our eyes about all the different pros and all the advantages of being on Levemir, especially during the erratic times of our cycle. And this can be from puberty, again, to even pregnancy and postpartum, and especially perimenopause. So it's a great type of insulin that can really help those times of unsteadiness with our blood sugar and our dosing decisions. So this client is taking Levemir, so that's the good part. She's on an insulin, and you'll learn here in just a minute when I unpack her story why this is a good choice for perimenopause as far as a type of insulin. So she was seeing higher blood sugars in the morning when she took her basal in the morning. So in other words, she started her day with her basal insulin dose. And I believe she was at 8 units. And I'm just using that as an example, as just something to kind of wrap your head around and to picture. Because this is really going to make more sense once I talk about her before and her after and what decisions she has made as we're speaking, because this is a live decision that just came through and something that she discovered and made some shifts on just recently. So that was her struggle. She started to notice this inconsistency. When she tried to take this same dose at bedtime instead, she had lows overnight. Interesting, right? So now she's wondering, should I split my dose or even move it to a noontime dose? So kind of in the middle of the day. So just to reassure, insulin resistance changes in perimenopause. So she is in her late 40s. She is experiencing these erratic. So what used to work is no longer working anymore. That basal that she had going on for years and, that kept her steady, throughout the month. It's just what's happening is that our cycles are erratic. The levels of estrogen and progesterone, especially during the luteal phase, so that's the last 2 weeks of your cycle, are just so unpredictable. So it's a little hard to dose your insulin based on other factors like hormones that you can no longer predict. And that is the bottom line. And that is the number one thing we are doing inside our coaching circles. We are unpacking these scenarios and these real life struggles that our members are having. And we're doing some basal rate testing. We're giving them suggestions, again, as a group and as a coach. We go back and forth and just bringing up ideas that have worked for us, things to consider, things to ask their care team about so that they can come up with their own solution through the mess, basically. Okay, so insulin resistance, like I was saying, it changes in perimenopause. So the insulin needs change too, right? So what worked for years, like I was saying, is no longer doing what it should do. And that is not your fault. So this is what my client decided to do. Again, we went back and forth. We looked at what she was doing and the response her body was having as far as glucose response. So she decided that she was going to split her dose. And this is definitely another option. And insulins like Levemir, which is Detamir, and I'm going to explain more about the different insulins and their duration, their length of duration, which is really, really important. And, just as a side note, I think that is something that we are often not educated about unless we dig for these facts and this information ourselves, is the type of insulin, what their pros and cons are, what's the best insulin for you based on your hormonal stage, and other lifetime factors too. So it's not just hormones, it's all the other things. It could be cortisol, it could be eating schedule, it could be exercise schedule. Anyway, these are things, especially when you are doing daily injections and you're taking that shot once or twice a day, and that's insulin that's in your body that's going to do its thing for up to 24 hours, some even longer. And you've got to make your shifts and adjustments around that basal that's just running and doing its thing inside, just kind of functioning independently, really. So we have the decision over how much we're going to take, and we have the decision about what type of insulin we're going to take. But we have to be aware of how it works in our body in order to make good decisions around the type and the dosing amount, if you can understand what I'm saying with that. I'm all about unpacking all the details and getting to the root of it. So this is what she discovered. So she decided to do the split dose. So she started at 8 units at night, and she decided she was going to do 5 units in the morning, and then she was going to do 3 units at bedtime. Again, that adds up to the same 8 units. So this was going to give her more coverage during the day, that 5 units at, say, 7 a.m., when she's obviously awake and can respond to any sort of changes, or whether it's a low or a high. So she's up and awake during the day. That's the best time to really make any sort of significant changes to our dosing, as opposed to nighttime dose, right? And so, okay, and then her smaller bedtime dose. So again, 5 units in the morning. And then she added that second dose. Again, she was like, oh, it's kind of a pain in the neck to have to take 2 shots a day. But as we talked through this and we reminded ourselves, well, wouldn't you rather have a basal, even if it's 2 shots a day, that takes the thinking out of it, that holds you steady, and where you're not doing correction insulin doses, of the short acting throughout the day or night, to correct what the basal isn't doing to support your blood sugar. So she's like, yeah, that's so true. I would much rather just take those 2 units and feel secure and confident about it, rather than, the unsteadiness, or again, that word, that unpredictability of a basal that you're not confident with. So the smaller bedtime dose helped her to stay steady overnight and cover the early morning hormone rise. Again, we do naturally kind of, it's the feet on the floor, cortisol. That's normal, that's natural. It's different for everybody. And again, during different times of your cycle, it's going to be a different response. But that 3 units at bedtime, so that was about 10 p.m. at night, was just enough to help her overnight stay steady and safe and to wake up at a good number. So far, so good. She's enjoying this shift, and she's really happy that she was able to think through it, learn more about the insulin she was taking, and to make that. And she made this decision alongside her healthcare team as well. So she bounced it off of them. And again, they were supportive, which is always good. So why basal insulin feels so unpredictable in midlife? Why? And then the fluctuating, along with that lowered estrogen, progesterone is fluctuating. We can expect the unexpected highs or lows depending on where that level is. And this is all about the luteal phase. This is when it gets a little shaky. This is the last 2 weeks of your cycle. So this is after ovulation up until you begin your first of the month bleed. So that is generally day 1 of your cycle is when you start to menstruate. And yeah, these are all the things that we just have to be aware of. It's so important to understand the why and how your body's responding so that we can kind of step back and say, oh, well, what about this idea, right? And this is a good example that my client used. Another thing is the cortisol spikes, like I mentioned, the early morning rises and the afternoon dips. So this is another thing. I think what happened with my client is she was taking that one basal shot, that one dose at night, and Levemir is an insulin that lasts anywhere from 8 to 14 hours, which is not very long. So if you are taking a shot, let's say 10 p.m. at night, even 14 hours later, that's noontime, right? So that's peak time. So by noontime the next day, you're starting to lose your punch as far as your basal. So your basal is really starting to slide off. You don't have that support. That's what keeps us steady. That's what keeps that glucose alongside the bolus and the short acting that we're using for mealtime. But that's what's going to hold us steady. So this is what she was noticing. She was noticing those afternoon rises, again, because her insulin wasn't lasting long enough. Now, Because hormones now change hour by hour, one fixed basal dose often can't cover a full 24 hours anymore. So let's go over the different types of long-acting insulin. So these are the basal insulin because not all of them behave or respond in your body the same. So we're going to start with glargine, and this is a type of insulin. Again, this is the chemical name. These are things I have to write down because I can't keep these all in my head either. So I have a chart just to keep track of them are. But these are typically the Lantus, the Basaglar, and the Tresiba. And they can last up to 20 hours. Again, this is such an average number that I'm going to give you. And this is what is written on the packaging. This is information you can find on the web with the companies that are producing these insulin and making them for us. So this is not information that is hidden. It's just something we got to look for and know about. The next one, like my client was using, was the Levemir, and that lasts, again, like I said, 8 to 14 hours. And that is considered a Detamir. And then the last one is Tresiba. This is the Degludec. And this is a long-acting, super long, up to 42 hours. And this is interesting. This is the insulin I was taking during perimenopause for years. I loved it. The pluses and minuses with a very long-acting insulin is like that, is that it's staying steady 24 hours a day. Well, in this case, more than 24 hours a day. Tresiba and most insulins are not something that you can stack, so that's the good news. So if you're taking Tresiba one shot a day, one insulin dose a day, every 24 hours, and you do it every 24 hours, are you going to continue to accumulate all this insulin in your body? Well, the theory is no, that your body's absorbing and it's a slow release, and it's releasing based on, your body and the system and the timing of the release. So I personally never had a problem with it stacking if I happen to overlap, or just the fact that, you're dosing every 24 hours, yet it lasts for 42 hours, which is a day and a half. So, all those things to consider. And those are important things to ask your doctor. Maybe you are noticing that your Tresiba dose, and I think this is why once I switched from Lantus, which is up to a 24-hour duration, to the Tresiba, and I did this, maybe 10, 15 years ago. Again, this is back when I was on MDI. One of the things that is well known is that you don't need as much Tresiba insulin based on the therapy settings and the duration of it. So that's really, really important to understand when and if you decide to get on Tresiba and you want to decide on what your dose. And your doctor may or may not know that, but definitely be aware of that. If you ever have questions about this, please let me know. I do kind of consider myself an MDI expert because I did it for 42 years. Oh my gosh, I can't believe that. So just to recap, so what matters most? How long it lasts in your body. Number 2, whether it has a peak. Most of these do not. Some of them, it'll say 1 to 2 hours. I know Lantus, when I used that years ago, it did seem to peak, and that is another story because I was taking my bedtime dose of Lantus, and at 3, 4 in the morning, I had some reoccurring low blood sugars. So either my dose was too high, which might have been part of it, but it was for me showing a peak time, and that's not good. So again, I switched back in that, and at that time I switched to a morning dose of Lantus, and that really did help. So my peak time for that Lantus after switching to, say, a 7 a.m. dose was around lunch. It was like mid-morning to lunch, and again, a lot easier to circumvent and to protect yourself again as far as those lows if you're up and awake, right? That makes a big difference. So how long it lasts, whether it has a peak, and how quickly dose changes show up. So I think that has a lot to do with something like the Levemir, which has a shorter duration time. So really some things to think about. And again, it all comes back to understanding what it is and how it works in order for us to understand how to use it or not use it. Talk to your doctor about maybe switching and trying a different type of basal insulin. So signs your basal timing may need to change. And these are just a few tips. You may need a new approach if you're seeing the following. Your morning highs, even with enough basal. So you think your basal rate is set okay, but you're still waking up high. And my client's story is a good example of that. Again, based on the type of basal insulin, the Levemir she was using, and it was wearing off based on her morning dose time. So the following morning, 24 hours later, she really didn't have any on board anymore. It was, the peak time had come and gone, and it just ran out. So there wasn't anything left on board to protect her numbers and to keep her at a better rate when she was waking up. And then the other thing was her afternoon lows. And in some cases, it can be afternoon highs because, again, depending on the timing, if, again, the insulin is no longer working or in your system on board, insulin on board, that's something we definitely say a lot, then, we need basal. We need a little drip back, going on in the system in order to keep us going. Otherwise, we will see the blood sugar start to rise. Another thing is blood sugars changing month to month as your hormones shift. Again, in the luteal phase, when progesterone rises and estrogen falls, many women become more insulin resistant. That is classic. And if this is you, definitely seek help on this. And often the timing stays the same, but the number of units needs adjusting. So just understand that as well. Like my client, she's got a system and she's got a routine with when she's taking her basal shot. And that's good. She's got that dialed in. That's something steady and predictable, consistent. I love the word consistent. That's something consistent. Consistency is something that we can better track results from. When we are switching it around and we're changing times of dose and how much we're dosing, that's when it gets it doesn't get a little, it gets very hard to understand what's really happening. So what I was saying too is she's going to keep that timing the same, but knowing during different phases of her cycle, in the luteal phase, the number of units may need to be adjusting. And that's something that she can easily recognize. And in most cases, if she gets with her doctor and she agrees that maybe she needs to up her dose during her luteal phase, that morning dose is to keep her at a more steady number throughout the day. So again, these are thoughts and things to think about. And again, understanding how your insulin's working. So why splitting dosing, like my client here, helps many women in perimenopause during this erratic cycle time. And split dosing, it usually means a smaller dose at night, which again, that's the safety because of the unpredictability of when estrogen and progesterone may peak or fall. So it's safer to do a smaller dose at night. A larger dose in the morning, again, repeating what my client's story was and how it all unpacked for her. Again, we're up and awake and we can better obviously witness what a larger dose in the morning as it's in our system for the whole body is going to do and how it's going to feel and how our blood sugars are going to respond. Again, safety first and to be aware of when and if any changes, again, to your dose has to happen. And this works because it matches the rising cortisol in the morning and the morning insulin resistant. It reduces the overnight lows. So again, safe. Going to bed without any worries, and encourage testing safety with structured basal checks. So that's another thing. Again, work with your practitioner if this is something that you need to learn a lot more about and to apply to your own therapy settings. Now, the midday basal option. Yes, some women do better moving basal to midday. Again, that could be around lunchtime. This can help when morning doses peak too early, when bedtime doses are too strong overnight. So again, if we're waking up too low, going to bed too high, all those things. And the midday provides more even coverage. Again, daytime, sleeping, and then the morning AM blood sugar level. And evaluate changes every 3 to 5 days, not on one day. Because there's going to be some other things that will factor in there. It could be more exercise, less exercise, stress, eating, drinking, all those things that are going to influence the outcome of how much insulin we need. We all know that. So look at the trends. Don't change or make a decision on dosing just based on, say, one bad day or one scary night, which I know it's hard not to when you are kind of feeling like you need some, to make something change because you don't want to repeat what just happened. But sit in it, evaluate it, learn from it, and again, talk to your doctor and your care team about this. It really is about the type of insulin. So all these practices and strategies work, but we first have to understand the type of insulin we are using right now. And we need to back into what it's good for, what it's best utilized for, and to make our dosing unit decision, so how much we're going to dose, and the timing of our dose, whether that's a midday dose or a split dose, very, very strategic for you. And I do encourage to track just a few key things when we are doing this. So wake up, what is your wake up blood sugars? Again, what are your trends? What are your afternoon trends? You do tend to, cortisol kind of falls in the afternoon. It should, if we have a good circadian rhythm kind of built in. And that does naturally, our sensitivity can go up a little more. Again, there's so many other factors. It could be timing of exercise. If you're an afternoon exerciser like I am, then my afternoon and evening sensitivity is increased. So again, these are all things to consider when you're trying to evaluate all the variables, right? And these are things we talk about inside our Type 1 and Midlife coaching circle. We get on Zoom. We do a Zoom call. We have ladies from all over the country and even Canada that jump on, and the Netherlands as well. Just unpack all these things that we're experiencing. We ask questions, and again, information to test out or to take to our doctors in order to live better with this disease the best we can. So just to recap, just looking at those trends, looking at your sleep quality. Again, waking up worried or with highs or lows is obviously going to interrupt your sleep. Looking at your cycle phase, tracking that and your hormone symptoms, and change one thing at a time after you speak with your practitioner, and to make a smart action step. Things to talk with your doctor about is splitting the dose, changing basal insulin type, so the type of insulin that you're using. Again, this is if you're on multiple daily injections, whether midday dosing is right for you, and redistributing units across the day, again, like my client is. So I'm just so happy with her process, her realization, and what she discovered about what she needed, when she needed it, and so far so good. She's feeling really, really confident about that. So basal insulin in perimenopause is a moving target. It's not a personal failure. It's just observation of what's changed on this stage of life and what you can do and how you can set up what can work for your current hormonal stage. It's so important. So with tracking, small adjustments, and support from your care team, steadier blood sugars are possible. I promise. I know it's not easy. I know it's frustrating. I know it can push us and test us. And just know that you're not alone. There's a lot of support out here. This show and my coaching programs and the community is right. We have a bountiful community of women and people living with diabetes that you can lean on. So stay tuned. Next week is going to be part 2 of this series for women on insulin pumps. So we're going to fine tune the basal rates in perimenopause. Again, that could be your pump settings, your extended boluses, your, whether it's auto mode, or manual mode, so all the different things. We're going to unpack that. And you can kind of explore some different things that might help you fine-tune your life with diabetes. So thank you for being here. I'm so thankful for you. Be sure to check out the free resources, visit the show notes, and if you have any questions or comments about this, jump over to Instagram. I'm at Type 1 and Midlife. You can also watch this show live on YouTube. So check out our YouTube channel. Again, the same name, Type 1 and Midlife. So have a beautiful day, and I'll be back in here for part 2 before you know it. Bye for now.